Thanks for tuning in to Preparing for Roma Next Generation and the CSBG Annual Report, a review of Module 3 on community level. Our presenters for this webinar are Jeannie Chaffin, Director of the Office of Community Services, Jenae Bjelland, Executive Director of the National Association for State Community Services Programs, Lauren Cook, CSBG Team Lead, Barbara Mooney, Director of the Association of Nationally Certified Roma Trainers, and Kate Blunt of the Federal Consulting Group. As I said before, we'll be reviewing Module 3 on community level.
Thank you, Lauren. So our reporting system must be driven by the goals we seek to achieve. And our goals are really driven and reflected by the laws that have governed the community action agencies really since the beginning. Whether you look at the Economic Opportunity Act that was passed in 1964 or the current Community Services Block Grant Act, they both reflect the importance of addressing poverty on both the individual and family level and community level. So because we have to move the needle on community level work, we need to have a module that allows us to report the work that we're doing at the community level. And so Module 3 is all about how to reflect in a much more robust way than we previously have our community level work, and it really lifts up what community action agencies are doing. Module 3 also reflects that poverty is complex, and reducing poverty requires community-level change, and we know that that takes time. And so a lot of our understanding and our experience about what it takes to do community-level work is rolled into the new community-level module. Community-level data has been a little incomplete in our network. The NPIs reported have not shown how CAAs engage in more systemic issues. Agencies have often been contributing to efforts that may change policies or practices, but that's not been reflected previously in the information we collect. The Community Action Network has not really had an opportunity to refine the community-level indicators over the years like we have with the family-level indicators. Over the years of implementation of Roma, we have done some pretty significant refinement of the NPIs for families and individuals. And we didn't dig in on that as much as we, on the community level, quite as much. Partly because it's really difficult. Figuring out how to measure community level work is not easy, and we have probably indicated over this process that we may not even have it perfect this go around, but we are advancing community level measurement, and we will have opportunities to refine that moving forward. We really appreciate that NPIs previously have been snapshots or snapshot measures, but that if we can really move to including baselines, that provides more context, especially when you can have a baseline and set a target, and it really begins to demonstrate the success of a strategy if you have baselines and targets. We know, though, that baselines can be tricky. For example, in some cases, data is not available for the area the CAA plans to serve or the area that the CAA is working in for a particular intervention. So we can appreciate that sometimes baselines are difficult. And because of that, we know we need flexibility, and the current CSBG annual report does allow flexibility for when baselines may not be appropriate. We believe that community measures need to capture the scope or scale of the impact of an intervention. They need to show movement on larger community-level change efforts. And as I said, we need to be able to show progress over time, because we know from our years of experience that when we tackle these really complex problems, it can take multiple years, multiple reporting periods before we can show impact on an outcome. We think that the community measures need to be easy to understand and allow some meaningful summary at the national level, but we also appreciate that it is not appropriate to do summaries of some indicators when you have baselines and targets involved, we'll just lose meaning if we summarize some of the indicators. We obviously want to be able to show what changed at the community level. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jenae to talk more in depth about the specific details of the current annual report.
Thank you, Jeannie. I think it's so important to really understand the framework of why we're doing all of the work that we do. And I want to thank the network for their dedication in helping us try to tackle the challenge of community level work and how we talk about that. So when we talk about this new annual report, we really heard loud and clear from the network. Again, like Jeannie said, community level work takes time. So currently in the IS, we do collect community indicators. They're rather low in what's reporting because it takes time to do the efforts and to see the actual impact. It may take 3 to 5 years. That the definition of community needs to be driven at the local level, that through the local community action agency needs assessments, that you might find that you have a community level indicator that you want to work on, but only in a specific neighborhood or a school district. And so that was one of the recommendations that the network had, is to allow the network to define what community they're actually working on. Then we also look at the fact that individual agencies are not expected to change the complex causes of poverty alone or overnight. That you might have, in rare occasions, some community action agencies working on community level changes by themselves, but usually you see this in coordination and in partnership with others. So this new annual report had a lot to tackle, and we wanted to ensure that we streamline this as much as possible. So I would say out of all the modules, this is the one that's had the most change over time, from the initial release of report over a year ago to what we have with this packet. That we wanted to be able to collect vital information on your local agency's community level initiatives, that we needed to show the connections between initiatives and outcomes and strategies, that we wanted to allow for you to report on all of the hard work and dedication that you have in order to make that final outcome. So report everything that you're doing over time, and that where possible, because we are in 2016, soon to be 2017, let's use technology to our benefit. So how can we auto-populate information? So it makes it easier for you to do this reporting, and that we can be able to have robust data that we need to be able to talk about what's happening at the community level. So we decided on Module 3 that we needed 3 different sections. Section A is a community initiative status form. This has undergone a lot of changes, and we've simplified it. This is where, as a community action agency and as a state, you can quickly see all the initiatives that local agencies are working on and where they're at with those initiatives. Now, we don't expect that local agencies are going to have a lot of initiatives for communities, that you might only have 1 or 2. Then Section B, that's where you actually talk about what the end results are. What are your indicators that you're being able to achieve with community? And then Section C, what are the strategies that you had put in place with your initiatives to be able to work towards those indicators, towards those outcomes? We recognize that just like individual and family indicators, we wanted to frame all of the work we do under the domains so that we carry through that commonality through the CSBG annual report. That when we talk about in Module 2, how you expend your CSBG funds by domains, that you're able to connect those up to how you're really working on community level indicators. So we have employment, education, housing, even the civic engagement and community level involvement. This helps us really frame the story of the work that we do as a whole for the block grant. Now I'm going to turn it over to Barbara Mooney, who's going to walk us through what is in the current packet and how it relates to the IS.
Thanks, Jenae. This is a slide that, if you've seen the first 2 modules, you'll recognize. It's a way of relating some of the new pieces in the annual report to the existing IS survey. You'll see Section A is the Community Initiative Status Form, And this is a new form that will help to define some of the aspects of the community level work. But some of the things that are included in this form were previously part of the partnership reporting. There are new community national performance indicators, and they build on the indicators that have been a part of the IS reporting in the past. And finally, there's a new section of community strategies that will help to identify the work that's being done for towards the initiatives that are identified. We have heard quite a lot of feedback about this module in particular, about the community level reporting, and so you'll see in the current report that there are some real modifications that were made. The reports, there were questions about the reports of rates of change and how difficult that might be, and so at a practitioners meeting where folks were able to look at this reporting, it was determined that counts of change in some cases, similar to what has been reported in the IS for a number of years, would still be appropriate in this area. And then additionally, some rates of change would also be introduced. The community initiative status page has been greatly simplified, and the reference to collective impact initiatives, a specific kind of community level work, has been removed. So this is a snapshot of the community initiative status form, and you'll see that this is a flat version of it. It will be interactive with drop-down menus to select responses, but this is the kind of information that you'll be reporting, the initiative's name, the name of the initiative, and then what year this initiative is in. You may be reporting on something that has started in previous years and you are in the third or fourth year of the initiative, or this might be the first year, and you'll be able to identify that. Then you'll have a brief narrative on the problem that is being addressed by this initiative. This is a way to reinforce some of the organizational standards and some of the basic Roma principles that say that the activities that agencies take are dependent upon their assessment of need at their own community level. And so this is an opportunity for you to say what the need was that was identified that caused the creation of this initiative, and then to provide a narrative related to what the goal is of the initiative, what changes you expect to see, the community domain that would be appropriate, so the domains you've seen before, employment, education, and so on. One of those you might pick at this point for number 5. And then a national performance indicator that might be your expected outcome to help focus the initiative's development. You'll also be identifying the community that will be a part of this initiative, and it might be a neighborhood, a city, a school district, or so on. And this is up to the agency to define based on the identification of the need and the expected outcomes that are projected. And then you'll talk about how many years you expect this initiative will take. Is this a 3-year project, a 10-year project? That goes in the expected duration. And then the item 9 is about the kind of partnership that would be engaged in for this initiative. It may be that this is an independent community action agency initiative, and you have that choice if it's something the agency is doing by themselves, or is it community action a core organizer of multiple partners, or simply one of the partners, an active investor in the initiative. So there's no value-laden judgment on that. That's just a description of the kind of partnership that's involved. Then it continues on about a little information about those partners. And then here's where you would select a strategy. So there are built-in strategies that you'll be able to choose from, and then you'll also be able to choose other. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And then you will be able to say what your progress is towards the outcome and the indicators that you've selected. There may be no progress in a particular area reporting period, and so you have the choice of saying that, or you can say, oh, we've achieved some interim outcomes, or we have achieved our final outcome. And then a narrative, again, to provide additional information about the outcomes or about the prospect and the progress towards those outcomes. Again, the reference to the indicator, the outcomes indicator, and the final status report if this is the end of the project. And then a lessons learned narrative to sum it up. So this is, as I say, a new piece, and it's greatly simplified from what you've seen in prior submissions of this report. But the idea is to get as much background information as possible about these community initiatives so that we're able to really share the kind of community level work that we're doing in the network. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Kate.
So let me talk about, as Barb mentioned, a couple of two new elements to the Module 3, to the community level work. We heard a lot from the field about the community level NPIs, concerns about being able to report on rates of change. So in response to that, we did two things. One, we added a whole section that's called Counts of Change Indicators, and these are very similar to what is reported on now. These are basic measures that provide the number of units of something being measured. So the number of jobs created, or the number of houses built, or the number of resources brought into a community. And these are things that have either been added or created or subtracted if you've eliminated poor housing or you've eliminated something specific. And in some cases, it's also a maintained. And this focuses on the community that the eligible entity has targeted. The second thing we wish to maintain, because there are community agencies out there who are trying to tackle some changes, some rates of change, trying to deal with some of the nastier things that people are facing. And this asks for some additional data points, such as baseline data. You can't determine what changes happen unless you know where you're starting. And it shows change over time in the identified community. So perhaps it's a change in the obesity rate, or it's a change in school readiness. The important thing to remember is that community action agencies can choose from a menu of either the counts of change or the rates of change. They do not have to report on a rate. They do not have to report on the counts. They can choose one or the other, or both. It is entirely up to the community action agency to fit what they are doing to what they think they want to have an impact on. There's also the opportunity to put in other. So if none of the counts of change indicators and none of the rates of change indicators quite fit or don't describe the impact that the agency wants, they can choose other and present an outcome measure, not an activity, but an outcome measure, what it is they expect to impact. So we think this provides a lot of flexibility and yet helps us move the needle and tell the story a little bit better about what is the impact that community action is having on the community. The other new thing that we have in Module 3 is a report on the community strategies. And we've provided, this is an example under housing, but we've provided a list, kind of a drop-down menu of all of the possible strategies that we are aware of at this point in each of the domains. So you'll see there's this list under housing, different kinds of campaigns, creating shelters, making different policy changes or legislative changes, all the different types of activities that you might engage in order to achieve the outcome that you're trying to in the community that you selected. You will also notice here that we've added other, because we know this is an area that's somewhat newer, working on a community level, and therefore we probably have not identified all the strategies that you could possibly come up with. That's where we're going to leave it to your creativity and hard work. So we've left an option for you to be able to specify, oh, we've got this different strategy. We think over time we will have identified other strategies from the other, and we'll be able to add it to the list. We expect that there will be some very interesting things going on in the country that we can add to this list. So those are kind of the two other key things that are part of the Module 3. So if you take the outcomes report, the strategies report, and the status form, you can see how we get a really good picture of what's going on in the communities and what community action is all about and the impact it's trying to have.
Okay, so now we want to kind of shift our focus to a quick case study. It'll give us an opportunity to not only spotlight an example of a community level initiative that is being done by a community action agency, but it will also help us kind of put this module into context. This might look a little familiar to you if you're from Louisville, Kentucky, or if you were at the Community Action Partnership Convention and came to one of the NASCSP sessions on community level work. We're going to take a look at an example of an agency that is addressing kindergarten readiness. Louisville Metro Community Services has really identified a goal to improve the quality of life for all residents and reduce poverty. They serve roughly 16,000 families annually, and they use their CSBG funds to focus on improving employment and education to reduce poverty. In their 2014 needs assessment, they used data that revealed that Head Start programs were currently at capacity. There was a reduction in child care subsidies that really put a strain on the low-income parents in their community. They also looked at preschool readiness data that revealed that low-income children were less likely to be kindergarten ready than children coming from other households. So they used all of this data to help them identify kindergarten readiness as a major need in their community. This is an example of some of the data that they used. Kindergarten readiness in Louisville by zip code. And you can see that the western zip codes are the areas that have lower incomes, where the eastern zip codes are really more affluent. So in some of those red regions, the kindergarten readiness rate is below 43%. Now, having identified the need in their community, they started thinking about what kind of community level strategy they could use to address this need. So these are some of the questions they asked as they were creating and developing their strategy. How do we address community change as a single organization? They thought about what their data told them about poverty and kindergarten readiness and how that connects. They also looked at what can we realistically implement, a citywide change or a neighborhood change. And they also looked at who else is doing this work. So they used other programs kind of as a resource to develop their strategy. They joined an initiative called Early Education 40210. So this initiative focuses on early education by zip code with the goal of increasing early childhood education, specifically in the 40210 zip code area. This is a place-based effort that serves as a model for progress toward community-wide kindergarten readiness, and they set a goal of 77% kindergarten readiness by year 2020. Now, thinking about the approach or strategy that they used to address this, they supported the expansion of kindergarten readiness best practices to child care providers in the zip code. They also worked with their public libraries to develop a program, 1,000 books before kindergarten, as well as front yard libraries within the zip code to increase the access for family reading. They had many partners that they worked with in this initiative that you can see here on the screen, so they were not working on this alone. And in terms of measuring the success of their initiative, their primary measure was kindergarten readiness rates, and the data was collected from children and families engaged through their child care centers using an ages and stages questionnaire. Now, if we look at some of the interim data that they found, the 40210 area, that's the zip code that this initiative is targeting, saw an increase in readiness during implementation. And this is really important because kindergarten readiness rates fell for the whole Louisville Metro area in the same period of time. So in 2013 to 2014, in their zip code, the kindergarten readiness rate was 32%. That went up to 33% in the first year, 2014 to 2015. And then you can see in the right-hand column, the readiness rate for Louisville Metro area was 52.3%, and that actually dropped to 51.9%. So now let's take a look at how Louisville Metro Services might report this on the community status form. You can see at the top of the page, of course, we have the name of the eligible entity. In Category 1 initiative name, we've named that Early Education 40210, and they would be in their second year of this initiative. I think it's important to note that this status form would be updated from year to year. Some of the information might change. A lot of it would stay the same, but the initiative year would, of course, be updated. And number 3, problem identification. We pulled this from one of their slides, but it gives an overview of what data they used to identify kindergarten readiness as something they were going to approach. And then number 4, their goal or agenda. This is some additional information on their goal of 77% kindergarten readiness by 2020. And number 5, we've named the domain that they're targeting, education and cognitive development. And in number 6, the ultimate expected outcome. So the outcome listed here comes from the list of the NPIs that you'll find in the module. And this would be available in a drop-down box so that you could select the appropriate NPI. And then number 7, we saw on a few slides ago that there's several options for identifying your community. But for this initiative, they would choose other and then explain that they're targeting one zip code. In number 8, the expected duration. We learned from that brief presentation that they're expecting this to last about 5 to 6 years. And then their partnership type. For this particular one, we know that they are an active investor in the initiative and they are working with multiple partners. And then we've listed 3 of their main partners, in number 10, Metro United Way, Louisville Leadership Center, and the Free Public Library. Under strategies, there wasn't one listed that exactly matched the strategies they've identified, so we would select other and then indicate the front yard libraries. Number 12, the progress on outcomes or indicators. The agency could make a choice if they were ready to report on an interim outcome, if they didn't have an outcome to report at this time, but they may want to report on that increase that they saw. So we've put interim outcomes. And then in number 13, we've left this information. This is exactly what is listed on the form, but they could add some additional detail on kind of the other effects of their outcomes that they wouldn't be able to report in the NPIs or anywhere else in Module 3. And then number 14, this would actually link to the NPI reporting, but this is where they would be able to enter their baseline of 32% and then their achievement of 33.7% kindergarten readiness, And then when they were coming to the end of this initiative, they could select from number 15, the appropriate final status. And just want to note there is the option to say that the initiative either ended as planned, ended early, et cetera. And then in number 16, they could indicate any of the other lessons learned, which would be really interesting to all of us who are interested in this kind of work.
Thank you, Lauren. That example was very helpful, I think, to see how these forms would actually work. So here we just want to ask you to look at what community level data you reported in the last fiscal year, and maybe take that and put it alongside this annual report and think about where would the data go that you've reported before. And then think about the report, once you've done that, are there things you're doing now that maybe you couldn't report before, but you could report now, and they would allow you to show the good community level work you're doing. What outcomes and strategies can you report on in the CSBG report that maybe you haven't been able to in the past? So we think that's a good way to kind of see how this report would work if you think about your work specifically, just like Lauren did with the work from our example. So just want to remind everybody listening that we are in the 30-day comment period for the annual report. We're encouraging folks to make comments, to make positive comments about what you think will work for you, work for the state, will work for community action across the nation, and things that if you have comments for improvement, to also get those all in before the end of the month, before the end of November. This is a 30-day comment period, and you're you increase the likelihood that your comments will be reviewed by OMB if you get them in before November 30th. And we have the email there for you to use to get your comments in to OMB, and also an email to send comments in, or not send comments, but send questions if you have them about the annual report. So we appreciate you listening, and just also want to remind you that we are doing 4 modules for each of the 4 annual report modules that will be recorded and available to you to listen to. Thank you.